Before I take a page from Glenn Dolphin's book, 24 Mile, 1983, Marines in Beirut, I'd like to first acknowledge the wives of these Beirut Marines, whether they're living or deceased. The wives, the significant others, partners of these Marines, whether you're his first, second, third, or fourth marriage, first, second, or third, Lisa or Kelly. Thank you for taking care of our brothers for as many years as we represent here today. Thank you for that. Absolutely, there's no medal that we could give you to that shows our appreciation for your tolerance, your love, your patience. In 1981, right up here at Camp Lejeune, I was with Comm Support Company, and I got a couple Marines here today that have never been back to Camp Lejeune since the early 80s. And we were on a comm exercise where we put communication gear all together to see how it works. Myself and another Marine, we had just hooked up 26 pair of cable wire to a communication van that just happened to have a 60-foot whip antenna on it. And as we were scrambling across this field with this reel of wire, steel reel axle holding the wire, we heard a loud crack and a thunder, and a bolt of lightning hit the antenna on that van, went through the van, went through the antenna, through the van, through the wire, through the cable, and through our bodies. What that felt like physically was that little shards of broken glass were being forced out of your body from every angle. You could feel your own body expand and contract. The physical pain that felt in that millisecond was unbelievable. And on the 23rd, little did we know that the way it felt to get struck by lightning and have that power go through you was what it felt on the 23rd. But times 1,000 on the 23rd. I share that story because when we woke up at sick bay, the hospital, the doc came in and he said, you'd been struck by lightning and you survived because the wire and you were a conductor of the power of the lightning bolt. You became an extension cord of that electricity. Takes me to the page from Glenn Dolphin's book. Corporal Zawacki was one of those Marines that couldn't sit still. He was never happy unless he was doing something. The leadership challenge in dealing with Zawacki was that the work assigned to him had to be something worthwhile. Busy work, or stupid shit, done just to be able to say that something was being done, was worse than inactivity for Corporal Zawacki. And that's enough about me. 40 years later, nothing's changed. 40 years later, why do we come? Every year, it starts in July. It can start in August, right around the time Lieutenant Losi and Staff Sergeant Ortega are KIA by mortar fire. The closer we get to October, the more intense the divine pulling gets. Am I going to go down this year? 14,600 days have gone by since we had our last supper with these Marines. 14,600 times is just the minimum number that we have thought of all of our brothers and the Gold Star families. And as soon as we think of them, we think of their mother, their father, their brothers, and their sisters. 14,600 times is the bare minimum number of times we've recalled the scenes in Beirut. There's many that I'm not going to share and shouldn't be shared, only amongst ourselves. On Saturday, October 22nd, we had a USO show in the lobby of the BLT. Just before that, Just before that, we ate together as a family, as a unit, and then enjoyed our brief night on the town in our compound, laughing, joking, Marines, dancing with Marines, having a good old time. Sunday, October 23rd, this unit, this family was blown apart. 100 yards north of the BLT was the MAU headquarters. MAU, obviously everyone knows, stands for the Marine Amphibious Unit. MAU headquarters was made up of logistics, intelligence, supply, and communications. Communications is just COM, is the abbreviation. Back then we had a saying, it was called, you can talk about us, but you can't talk without us. More commonly, sorry, I apologize for that. The MAU headquarters was made up of men with names like Harold Francis Robinson, Staff Sergeant Aragon, Cadis, Nelson, Zierhut, Lacey, Burgess, Conrad, Middlebrooks, Hall, Stevens, Kahn, Siliberto, Sims, Harris, Corrigan, Hudson, Dunning, Pikes, Armstrong, a half dozen Army or Navy Armed Force Radio and Television Service Unit, and one private first class, Mark Stryker, a field wireman. 622 on the 23rd, these men were not just the first responders or even the immediate responders. We woke up by the sound and the heat and the rain, the rubble of this explosion, because we were in this scene from the millisecond that happened until the next 28 days. We were in that scene. Little did we know, 40 years later, we'd still be in that scene. We were wounded in our own right as we stumbled with vertigo and our scrambled brains. We were tasked with being corpsmen as we could barely see and hear what was in front of us. We were the men who spent not only the Last Supper with your Marine, but the last minute he lived. We were the men who gave them a sign of the cross on their forehead and told them that we loved them. On the second day of rescue and retrieval, PFC Mark Stryker said to me, he said, Z, tie some of that comm wire around me and I can low crawl down into the dark hole and crevice as far as I can. I know there's guys down there. If the rubble shifts and I die, with the wire, you'll at least be able to find me. And if I die, tell my family what I did. In 2003, I found out that Mark Stryker had died of complications from PTSD. So I got in my truck with my photo album and I drove to Charleston, West Virginia and met with Mark's family. The split second I laid eyes on them, I felt like I had known them my entire life. After a whole weekend of storytelling, and yes, laughing and joking and crying, I didn't want to leave, and they didn't want me to leave either. They had no idea their brother was a hero. And I wonder what Mark would look like if he were alive today. And I say this, if you look around you and look at that Marine to your left or your right or in front of you, that's what Mark would look like today, even though most of you look like sailors. So the answer to the question of why do we come because as a family, the spirit of these men is alive and well, and it's right here, right now. There is divine power that pulls us all here, just like the divine power that gave us the strength and fortitude to carry the rubble all these years, and for all of us as a unit to reach out of our own rubble and help another wounded soul. We've all seen that long shot of the BLT, the still shot of the BLT in a mushroom cloud. It's unbelievable still to this day that any of us came out of that alive. Now I'm afraid the whole world is in that mushroom cloud of evil. That same divine force that brings us here needs us now more than ever. Evil can kill our bodies, but it will never kill our spirit. You all being here today is proof of that. This time together, this place is a field hospital and a church for the wounded and the hungry, and that's why we come. There's one more scene I want to take you to. On the last week of being in Beirut, I gotta back up. I carried around a book. The book's called God Calling. And now they have a larger print new edition, which works out great for me. I've read this book 47 times in the last 47 years. I've always carried a copy of it. It's like having a one-on-one with Jesus for a minute. Gives you something to think about. Day 24 of rescue and retrieval, everything was cleaned up, everything was sorted out. And those of you from the MSSG, Mao headquarters, helicopter squadron, you know where I'm about to take you. You'll know this scene. Behind the Mao headquarters was another building, the remnants of a building. So on my way over from that, I stopped before my duty. It's like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, and I just sat and looked towards the BLT and couldn't believe what had just happened there in the last 3 weeks. And down in front of me, I find this little patch of green grass, baby green grass. And I just put my hand over it, rubbed my hand over it, and I thought, wow, after all that death and destruction and chaos, here's a sign, here's a symbol that life continues to grow. I get back into the COC. I crack open this book, not to the day, it just randomly popped up. And on that day, this is what I read, and this is what I would like for you to leave here with today. Help and peace and joy are here. Your courage will be rewarded. Try to realize that your own prayers are being answered in a way that seems painful to you, but that just now is the only way. This was not a cruel test, rather tender preparation for the work you are to do for me. Success in the temporal world would not satisfy you. Success in the temporal and spiritual world awaits you. I know what you will see this had to be. And one gesture I want to give to you all that we gave to your Marines. God bless you, and I love you. You made it.